Tonight, as protests grow inside Iran, as well as fear of more executions, we get local reaction and take you to a memorial tree at Saskatoon's River Landing. Also, how climate change is affecting ski hills and winter sports in Canada.
Feeds it across Bedard, rips the shot!
Plus, a season record crowd welcomes Connor Bedard and his gold medal back to the Regina Pats.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Monday, January 9th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for watching. The Iranian Canadian community in Saskatchewan is reacting tonight to a volatile situation in Iran. There's been a wave of international condemnation today after Iran executed 2 more protesters over the weekend. Canada has imposed new sanctions targeting what it calls Iranian propaganda. Other governments, including Britain, Germany, the U.S., and the EU, are taking diplomatic action. 2 men were hanged on Saturday, and a video on social media purports to show demonstrators outside the prison where 2 other men are set to be hanged. At least 3 more have been sentenced to death for the killing of a paramilitary militia member during an anti-government protest. 2 other men were executed earlier. Iran has been rocked by demonstrations and violence since a 22-year-old woman died while in the custody of Iran's so-called morality police in September. Mahsa Amini was being held for violating the Islamic Republic's strict dress code. A tree at Saskatoon's River Landing has become a memorial to those killed in protests in Iran. Red ribbons are tied to pictures to symbolize the blood and innocence of hundreds of people killed during the protests. In November, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights said the crackdown on protests in Iran had resulted in more than 300 deaths since September. Saskatoon's Amir Abulhassani says that number is much higher and includes children.
We're talking about numbers. People are not numbers. Every one of them was a lovely soul that we have lost. What is going to be shocking for everyone is how innocent these people look, how young they are. You will see a lot of children between the victims of the regime. This is the end of this regime. I'm certain about it. It may be sooner or later, but it's definitely coming.
Abulhassani and his group in Saskatoon are banking on international pressure to help topple the regime. They're calling this the memorial the Sarv tree for Mahsa. Sarv is the Persian word for a cypress tree, which is a symbol of freedom and resistance. The name also honors Mahsa Amini, the woman whose death in police custody sparked the mass protests. A grassroots organization that's been trying to feed those less fortunate is frustrated by the city of Regina. City officials recently decided to no longer allow food or drink on its warming bus. It's a service the city is operating as a stopgap measure while it tries to find a more permanent space for those experiencing homelessness. Volunteers with the warm meal planning team were able to drop off meals for weeks before the decision was made. Now they're being told to provide all donations to the All Nations Hope Network in North Central, with no explanation for the rule change.
I mean, the reality is there was no funding for this in the city budget. And then we were not allowed to bring food on the bus, even private citizens. And now we've been redirected to All Nations Hope. I just think that there was no plan here. There continues to be really no plan, and it's extremely frustrating.
In a statement provided to CBC News late this afternoon, city officials said the decision to ban food from the warming bus is because the vehicle is not meant to provide the full services associated with the shelter. The city also says it could not safely and fairly distribute food donations or provide a healthy space for people to eat. This month has brought record warm conditions in much of Europe, and while not as deadly as a summer heat wave, it is wreaking havoc on ski season. But how will climate change affect winter sports in Canada heading forward? Meteorologist Christy Kleimenhege explains.
While cold winter weather may send some of us running for cover, for many Canadians, it's an open invitation to get outside and hit the slopes. But what will these ski hills look like as our winters and our climate continue to warm?
We've done modeling throughout Canada, the US, much of Europe, and then we've also looked at all of the different Winter Olympic hosts. So those are dispersed across Asia, Europe, and North America. Canada does generally better than most places as a country.
But even within our borders, there's a lot of wiggle room. Ontario has seen some of the biggest changes to date, with green Christmases stalling seasons at Blue Mountain. But Quebec and the Rockies have fared a little better.
When you get over into the interior BC, you get that real cold and reliable cold to make snow, but you also get reasonable amount of snow coming over the mountains. You see that in some of the passes and stuff that become unpassable at times.
Research shows American ski seasons have been growing progressively shorter over the past decade, and Scott believes the same trend is already underway here in Canada. If correct, Scott says we can expect another 10 to 15 years of relative stability, but changes could ramp up by 2050 depending on how warm we get.
Low emission, sort of successful Paris climate agreement, not much different than today. A bit more, certainly higher operating costs, a little bit shorter season, but in the mid-century under a high emission scenario, you're already pushing the limits for snowmaking in some key parts of the year around Christmas, holiday, New Year.
While a shorter season could hurt communities that rely on nearby slopes for tourism, it's unlikely that interest in skiing and snowboarding is going anywhere.
If a big chunk of your competitors go out of business and demand stays the same relatively, which is what we've seen in record warm winters, the demand doesn't go away. There's market share to be had. And so that's what you'll probably see both in the western regions, but in the eastern regions.
Many in the industry are already working to adapt, whether it's harvesting snow elsewhere, making their own, or diversifying into more summer activities. But across the board, two things are certain. Ski seasons will get shorter and operating costs will go up. Christy Kleiman-Higgis, CBC News, Edmonton.
The First Nations University of Canada wants to build a new northern campus in Prince Albert. And today, City Council voted unanimously to transfer 5 acres of land to the university for the project. There is currently a campus downtown in a leased space. The university says it can't meet the needs of the fast-growing student population. Right now, there are just under 400 students there, and the university expects at least 600 within the next decade. At a special City Council meeting today, the university said the project will cost between $40 and $60 million, and that means jobs for people in the Prince Albert area.
We know it's an important project for the youth here in Prince Albert and the North, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous. This is an amazing opportunity to provide the student experience and the programming that they deserve here that we currently cannot offer in our current facility. And it also goes a long way in terms of working towards reconciliation.
The new northern campus is contingent on federal funding. First Nations University says it will be applying for that funding in February. The city's only asking $1 for the 5 acres of land, and council says it looks forward to cutting the ribbon at the new school once it's complete. The Regina Pats drew their largest home crowd of the season last night with the return of captain Connor Bedard.
Bedard rips the shot.
That was only the beginning. The 17-year-old scored 3 more goals and recorded 2 assists for a 6-2 win over the Calgary Hitmen. It marked a personal best 6 points in a single game for Bedard. He had not played at the Brand Centre since November, and during that time, Bedard broke records, won gold with Team Canada, and gained more fans at the World Juniors. He also says he learned a lot.
It was awesome, I think, being in front of that crowd and with the group we had, we were so close, and it was just so much fun. And then obviously to come back here and I was glad we had a game pretty quick, kind of get back into it and see the boys again. So it was a good last few days.
More than 4,700 people attended Sunday's homecoming. The Pats coach says Bedard needs to take a few days away from the rink to get some well-deserved rest. The Pats and their captain return to the Brand Centre to host the Saskatoon Blades this Friday night. Now, while the eyes of the sports world have largely been on Bedard, it's also been a banner year for several Saskatchewan athletes. As Jason Warwick reports, we have plenty of local champions to celebrate.
While Connor Bedard helped Canada capture gold last week, he's not the only Saskatchewan athlete to win a championship. Saskatoon goalie Darcy Kemper won more than 40 games last year with the Colorado Avalanche on their way to winning the Stanley Cup. And Saskatoon's Emily Clark helped Canada win gold at the Olympics in that dramatic 3-2 victory over the US. When she arrived home, dozens of fans showed up to welcome her at the airport, waving signs and cheering. In basketball, Humboldt's Paige Crozon and her team took the silver medal in the 3-on-3 basketball World Championships in Belgium over the summer. And in the sport of wheelchair fencing, Ryan Roussel of Asquith won 2 gold medals at the World Championships in Brazil. Observers say 2022 was an exceptional year for Saskatchewan athletes.
I think that we don't have to look too far to find success stories of our athletes at every level.
Last year, Sask Sport handed out $1 million in grants to athletes and coaches across the province, but Scholar says it's about more than money.
I think that, Saskatchewan has the ability to create resilient people who are able to understand their greatness and what their strengths are and really lean into them. And some of those athletes who get their start here do come back home in the off season and give back, and they foster that same attitude and motivation into the next generation of athletes, which I think encourages a legacy of performance.
Of course, there were many other strong performances. Saskatchewan athletes continued to thrive on the ice, but also in the pool, on the field, and on the track. Scholar says she expects many more names to be added to this list in the coming year. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A Saskatchewan artist passed a significant milestone this week. Marcia Schold has produced a painting or a drawing every day for the past 1,000 days. She started posting them on Facebook at the beginning of the pandemic as a way to motivate herself. The question is, will she keep going?
It's kind of surreal to reach 1,000. It just happened. I wasn't waiting for it to come. It sort of snuck up on me. One day you're at 300 and the next day you're at 1,000 is kind of how it felt. And am I going to keep going? I don't know the answer to that. Thus far, I have. It gives me a little bit of purpose. It gives me great joy. It gives me a mental health break because making art for me is joy. I don't think of stopping as being a failure or anything, but I did make a commitment, in hindsight, kind of a stupid one, to do it while the pandemic was ongoing. And I really hope the pandemic ends, but we're not there yet. So I don't know. I don't know when I'll stop.
Well, for a day that started out mostly cloudy in Regina, it turned out pretty nice and felt almost like spring to start out our week. Certainly nice enough to get outside for some fresh air in Regina, and it looks like we're going to ride that nice weather right through the week. Ethan will have more in his forecast after the break. Stay with us. The RCMP in Saskatchewan received more than 352,000 calls for service in the last year. Many emergencies, but some were missed dials, false alarms, and matters that were far from life and death. Alex Soladuca brings us the RCMP's top 10 list of the worst 911 calls in 2022.
These are the 911 calls that missed the mark, according to Saskatchewan RCMP. At number 8, the caller said they choked on a mosquito, lost their dentures, and couldn't eat supper. Sounds like a rough night. One caller said they needed help deleting their voicemails. Come on, just ignore them like the rest of us. Next, someone called 911 to say that there was a cougar on the loose. When asked for more details, the caller laughed and said that the cougar's name was Cindy. Yeah. A caller said they had ordered $65 worth of fast food and that their roommate had eaten all of it. They wanted the RCMP to come and sort out the disagreement. One caller said that a cat was being hostile and needed to go to an animal shelter. Starting off the top 3, a customer called from a clothing store saying that the manager wouldn't let them return winter boots that had already been worn. One caller said they were out of milk and asked the Mounties to get them more. Have you heard of Instacart? And at number 1, a concerned individual called to say that their bathtub drain was clogged and the water wouldn't go down. What a way to clog up the phone line. And with this list, the RCMP also sent a reminder that 911 is meant for police-related incidents and life-threatening emergencies. So let's keep that in mind in 2023. Alex Soladuca, CBC News, Regina.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. The trade and upgrade event is on now.
And CBC weather specialist Ethan Williams joins me now. Nothing emergent about this weather forecast you've got going on.
No, that's right. And don't return the winter boots at all. And definitely don't call 911 if they won't let you return them. But we have had some spectacular weather in the south of the province today. Some very warm temperatures. In fact, more than 10 degrees above normal for this time of year in southwestern Saskatchewan. Maple Creek, you hit 5 degrees today. Not near a record, though. You needed to get to 13 in order to hit that. And really, the rest of us across south central and southeast getting around 10 degrees above normal. Even in the parklands where it was a little bit cooler today, up around 6 degrees warmer in Yorkton. But there's a sharp divide when you head through central portions of the province. Saskatoon, very different from Regina today. You had cloud cover and you saw temperatures into the mid to upper minus teens. And really, that's where the coldest air is, kind of through that central part of the province this afternoon. Now, all of us are going to drop back down into more normal conditions through these next couple of days, as you'll see as the jet stream stays to our south and a little bit of colder air building in. But toward the end of the week, toward the end of the work week and into the weekend, we are going to be seeing the jet stream lifting a bit closer to the Canadian border, and that brings some warmer air that they're experiencing in the western United States toward us. And it looks like that will hold for a few days, making for another nice weekend next weekend. Now, fog has been an issue once again today in portions of west central Saskatchewan. In fact, right now at the airport at Meadow Lake, still down only to about 200 meters of visibility there. And really, it's southern Saskatchewan tonight where we're going to see the most of the fog. Possibly zero visibility. This is just a one forecast model, but around Regina and Estevan, specifically along that Trans-Canada corridor, if you're traveling through the evening and even into tomorrow morning, we're expecting that fog to linger, and that could really pose problems in southeastern and southwestern portions of the province. Now, in addition to the fog, you'll see it's nice and clear along southern Saskatchewan. That changes as we go through the night. Increasing cloudiness through much of the province tonight. Tomorrow, we are looking at scattered flurries in the north, a little bit of a system moving along southern Saskatchewan, which could bring a couple of centimeters. That clears out for Wednesday, but mostly cloudy conditions likely going to be sticking around. Now, how much snowfall? Maybe only a centimeter or two, and it's really to the south of the Trans-Canada that we're going to see the most of that. Maybe 1 centimeter in the southwest, close to 2 centimeters in Regina, but really north of there, we're not expecting all that much. And winds, despite the fact that we have a bit of a system moving through, not really going to budge. Tomorrow going to be a nice calm day despite the snow, and on Wednesday we'll see winds pick up a little bit in southeastern Saskatchewan as the system passes to our southeast, but really at that, winds only going to be gusting around 25-30 kilometers an hour. The next 7 days in Regina, there's that warm-up I promised coming on Friday. Nice 0 degrees. Some sunshine coming after we have a couple of days here of cloud cover. Cloud cover, though, building back in for the weekend and heading into next week. Saskatoon, you're normal for this time of year, minus 11, and you'll stay above that, it looks like, each and every day as we head through the next few days. So, Sam, a little bit cloudy, chance of snow, but overall no wind, nice temperatures. It's going to be nice for the second week of January.
Normal and mild in January is something I will take, Ethan.
Yeah, very rare.
Thank you.
You bet.
NFL player Damar Hamlin's been released from hospital just a week after suffering cardiac arrest during a game. Doctors at the Cincinnati hospital where he was a patient announced he's returned to Buffalo, where he plays for the Bills. The doctor said the athlete will continue to be monitored by a medical team in Buffalo. In recent days, Hamlin has walked and done physical and occupational therapy. During a road game against the Cincinnati Bengals last Monday, Hamlin's heart stopped after a routine hit, and he had to be resuscitated on the field. We'll be back after the break. The Liberal government is replacing its current fighter jet fleet with 88 F-35 aircraft. This is the purchase it previously opposed. But Defense Minister Anita Anand says the aircraft is better now than it was in the past.
Since 2015, the aircraft has matured And we see now that many of our allies, 8 countries in particular, are using the F-35.
The cost is $19 billion. Earlier versions of the F-35 had a history of mechanical glitches. Pilots will initially train with them in the United States starting in 2026 until facilities are built in Canada. Several members of the royal family have seen their approval ratings plunge as the highly anticipated memoir by Prince Harry arrives in bookstores. A poll released today in the UK suggests King Charles's approval has dropped from 70 to 60%. Prince William has fallen from 84 to 69%, and Harry himself now stands at a meager 26%. Harry continued his promotional campaign for the book last night on 60 Minutes in an interview with Anderson Cooper.
You say you tried to do this privately.
And every single time I've tried to do it privately, there have been briefings and leakings and planting of stories against me and my wife.
Harry says he hopes the book will help the monarchy and spark press reform in the UK. It contains many personal details, and Harry says he's hoping for reconciliation with his brother, Prince William, and his father, the King. The book's out tomorrow, and some commentators say it has plunged the monarchy into its biggest crisis since the breakup of Charles and Princess Diana. The royal family is not commenting. But Ethan is back, and he is commenting with one last look on your weather.
And it will be a very foggy comment on Regina's weather tonight, Sam. We're looking for foggy patches, -10, but winds will remain light, and that's a story that we'll see through the day tomorrow as well. Not going to budge much up to 11 kilometers an hour, sitting at -11. Fog likely still lingering in the morning hours. Should burn off by the noon hour, but keep in mind over this last week or so, we've seen that fog linger into the afternoon sometimes, so just keep a heads up on that. Rising to -9, a little cooler than we saw today. Saskatoon, not as much fog in the way of things, partly cloudy. Winds are going to stay light for you though, and as we head through the afternoon, looking for cloudy conditions to build in the morning, and they will stay cloudy in the afternoon, but unlike Regina, we should see that snow stay away for the most part in Saskatoon, Sam, so just a cloudy day ahead in that part of the province.
All right, thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And before we leave you tonight, we ask, how far would you go for cheaper beer? Rebellion Brewing Company in Regina launched a new marketing campaign yesterday. It's offering 50 free tattoos of its logo done by local tattoo artists. Those who sign up get a 10% discount on Rebellion beer for the rest of their life. They just have to show the tattoo. The offer was so popular, all spots were taken within 24 hours.
We really wanted to just have some fun right after the big Christmas rush. We knew January and February would be kind of quiet. So we said, let's make some noise. Let's give away 50 free tattoos. And you never really know how it will work out or how fun it will be or how aggressive people will be. In 24 hours, we had over 50 tattoos booked with these artists. I know that asking someone to put something permanent on your body, like a Rebellion tattoo, it's a big ask. But it doesn't faze our fans. They're hardcore, they love us, and we love them back.
Rebellion did something similar back in 2016, but it didn't realize how popular the campaign would be. 100 people signed up before it was cut off, and Rebellion could barely afford to pay for all that tattoos, which cost $100 each. So this year, the brewery capped it at 50 people. And that is it for us tonight. For News Anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/Sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Glenn, Reed, and Ethan will have more news and weather tonight at 11. Thanks for watching, and have a great night.